On October 31, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump announced via Truth Social that he is designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, under the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998. This label highlights countries where governments or non-state actors engage in or tolerate systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. Trump's post specifically cited an existential threat to Christianity in Nigeria, blaming radical Islamists for the mass slaughter of thousands of Christians, and directed the House Appropriations Committee to investigate immediately. He emphasized U.S. readiness to protect our great Christian population around the world, framing it as a moral imperative. This isn't the first time. Nigeria was briefly designated a CPC in 2020 under Trump's first term for systematic violations, but it was lifted in 2023 under Biden to improve bilateral ties. The renewed focus follows advocacy from U.S. lawmakers like Representative Riley Moore, Republican Vulverm, and Senator Ted Cruz, Republican Texmet, who highlighted over 7,000 Christian deaths in Nigeria in 2025 alone, averaging 35 per day, per reports from groups like International Christian Concern and Open Doors. What this means for Nigeria: potential implications. The CPC status doesn't automatically trigger penalties, but serves as a diplomatic red flag, pressuring the Nigerian government to address the issue. Here's a breakdown of short and long-term effects based on historical precedents, e.g., sanctions on countries like Iran or Myanmar, and current reactions. 1. Dismay: increased U.S. scrutiny could force Nigeria to strengthen security in vulnerable areas, e.g., Plateau, Benue states, against groups like Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, and Fulani militants. Advocacy groups hope it leads to better protection for Christians, who face 70% of global faith-based killings per Open Doors. 2. U.S.-Nigeria relations, especially amid economic ties. This will affect Nigeria as Africa's largest economy and a key oil partner. 3. Eye effect could unlock targeted U.S. aid for religious freedom programs or refugee support, benefiting displaced Christians, millions affected since 2009. 4. IMD can also open door to sanctions, such as restricting U.S. arms sales, critical for Nigeria's military, or freezing assets of officials complicit in inaction. This can exacerbating insecurity if Nigeria's forces are under-equipped. Critics fear broader trade hits, given Nigeria's $500 billion+ external debt. 5. Easier asylum paths for Nigerian Christians fleeing violence, potentially easing pressure on local communities. U.S. refugee policies under Trump have tightened overall, but CPC could create exceptions for faith-based cases. 6. Maintains international awareness, empowering Nigerian activists, e.g., Christian Association of Nigeria, to demand accountability from President Tinubu's government. Sanctions are discretionary. President Trump delayed them in 2020, but with his rhetoric, they're more likely now. In the short term, next 3 to 6 months, Nigeria should expect U.S. congressional probes and diplomatic talks. And in the long term, it might catalyze anti-terror funding if Nigeria cooperates, or isolation if it doesn't. Ultimately, the real win depends on whether this translates to safer country, not just headlines.